So today, Eric and I are going to show you some foundational yoga poses. We're going to take you through a little breathing, and we're going to take you through about 10 yoga poses, showing you the technique and the form for each pose. So as you continue on this yoga journey, you can do everything safely. I will show all of the poses from floor, center floor, mat. Eric will be using, as you can see, a chair and a wall for modifications, and any injuries, he'll speak to those. So we're going to begin our first pose, which we will add in the breath too, but we're going to start in what's called mountain pose or Tadasana, just a standing pose. So we're grounding the feet down. So bring your focus down to your feet. And in yoga, we kind of say to go to all four corners of the feet. So if you can think of spreading from the big toe to the pinky and both sides of the heels. So really spreading the weight out. So you're not leaning forward or back or pronating or, okay, I won't use technical terms, sorry, but I want the weight evenly distributed in the feet. Shake out the knees because they cannot be locked out. So the ankles to the knees to the hips. We want to try to bring that into a straight line. And then we move up to the shoulders. So we're stacking shoulders, hips, knees, ankles, keeping the knees soft, keeping the shoulders relaxed. Now bring your focus to your core. You probably have a natural arch in your back. I'm going to turn sideways so you can see. So I tend to have a little bit of a lordosis where my back is overly arched, so I need to tuck it in a little, but I think of like zipping up the core, pulling in the abdominal wall, tightening the ab muscles here, using the glutes and the hamstrings, and then again, keeping those knees soft. So as you start to tighten those muscles, make sure you're not squeezing through the knees. So just pause for a moment here and think of everything I just said. So start with the feet. Is your weight evenly distributed? Move up to the ankles, up to the knees, not locked out, up to the hips, pull up through the belly, the core, and shoulders are relaxed down. Now the neck and the spine. So I want you to think of your chin being parallel to the floor. So you're not hunching over or looking up. So perfectly straight as if it's on a shelf right in front of you. The back of the neck, we want nice and long as if it's against a wall. So the spine is long. This is your mountain pose or Tadasana. Hands can just fall to the side with the palms open. This is the traditional stance. Hands can come to prayer. So there's lots of different arm options in these poses, but we're more worried about the technique and the form of your body. So we're just going to hold this here for a moment, and then we're going to talk about breath. You can keep your eyes open or closed. And what I want you to do is visualize a 4-count breath. And the reason I say 4 counts is if you're new to this breath, it's going to feel long because our natural breathing is a short chest breath. And what we want to do is take this breath into our belly. So you literally want to feel your belly expand and contract with the breath. So as you inhale, you're going to think of the breath coming through the nose to the back of the throat, to the lungs, to the belly. And then the opposite as you exhale, you push the air in, squeeze your belly in, push the air up to the lungs, through the throat and out the nose. So it's like this little flow. The air is coming in, the air is coming out. So I'm going to stop talking now and you're going to try this. In and out the nose. This is called an ujjayi breath. So just begin to inhale your own count of 4 to the throat, to the lungs, to the belly, and pause. Reverse. Squeeze up through the belly, lungs, out the nose, and pause. Just continue this little flow of breath. You'll notice when you're taking a yoga class, they'll say, we're going to hold this for 3 breaths or 5 breaths. And in the beginning, you may say to yourself, okay, I'm on breath number 10. What's taking them so long? Because it takes a little practice to get this slow breathing. You may hear your exhale. It'll sound like you're listening to a shell. Try another deep breath. We're just going to do one more breath here. And I just want you to notice as you're breathing, the relaxing sensation of the breath. There's a reason we say stop and breathe. Calms the entire central nervous system. So a yoga practice is always breath-based. Okay, so that was pose number 1, Tadasana or mountain pose. And ujjayi or ujjayi, you may hear it pronounced breathing. So another little tip about yoga is people pronounce things differently. There's the traditional Sanskrit, there's the Western version, there's slang. So you may hear different things, but they all mean the same thing. I'll try to tell you all the variations I know in case you hear them. So I will normally say mountain pose in my videos. The next move we're going to pose we're going to move into is forward fold. So it's literally, I'm going to turn to the side. We're just going to hinge at the waist, drop the hands. So this is going to depend on your hamstring flexibility, and you're going to, again, keep those knees soft. So we're bending halfway, we're dropping the hands. If you're flexible, your hands may come all the way down to the floor. I just want you to try that and feel where you feel a comfortable stretch without any pain. It's okay to feel a stretch, but it's not okay to. So this is your forward fold. Now, bring your attention back to your feet. Are you leaning back in your heels and pushing your glutes backwards? Or are you leaning forward on your tiptoes? So again, try to press that weight through the four corners of the feet, really ground down or root down through your feet. Keep the knees soft, lift through the hips, relax the shoulders down, and then the last piece is to drop the head. So we want the neck soft. So we're just going to hold this forward fold for a moment, and then I'm going to let Eric add anything he may need to add.
All good.
Okay, great. So we're going to hold this here. Now we're going to try to bring that breath to the pose. So holding the pose, connecting the breath. You're going to take that 4 count breath in and out. As we breathe in these yoga poses, we try to lengthen on the inhale and deepen on the exhale. So for instance, we take the breath in, we maybe lengthen the arms, lengthen the hamstrings. As we exhale, maybe try to go down a little deeper. Could be a tiny micro movement, just going a little deeper into the pose, and hold. We're going to take one more breath here, and then we're going to move on to our next pose. So coming out of the forward fold, you start to let the hands float up off the floor. Take a bend in the knees. We're going to slowly roll up to standing and back to your mountain pose. So as you roll up, you'll end in your mountain pose. Okay. The next pose is called monkey or half lift. And if you're in a forward fold, it's going to look like this. The goal of this pose is a flat back and a lengthening of the spine and the neck from top of the head to the tailbone. We want to be nice and flat. So you have to pull the belly up. The hands again are just going to drop down. They can come to the shins. They can come to the front of the hand or the front of the thighs. If you're flexible, they can come to the floor and you can just lift to the fingertips, but you want to pull that belly up and in and flatten the back. So this is a half lift, a monkey. You can reach out, lots of different arm options, but the point of this is to lengthen through the spine, lift up through the hamstrings, keep the knees soft. And I'll let Eric speak to that and demonstrate it using the chair.
Actually, we don't need it.
We don't need. Great.
The only reason you'd use the chair on this one or on the other one would be if you have a balance related issue, which case you would probably just keep a hand touching the chair. But otherwise, no, we're good.
Okay, so let's all come into our monkey or half lift and hold. Find your breath. If your hands are on your legs, you can actually press the hands into the legs, pull the shoulders back to get a little deeper into the stretch through the back. Okay, now to come out of this, we're going to drop down to forward fold, which we just learned. So just drop the hands, drop the head. Take a bend in the knees, and we're going to slowly roll up to standing mountain pose. So when we get to sun salutations in another video, those 3 poses are a big part of the sun salutation. Mountain pose, forward fold, and monkey. So those poses you will do constantly. Okay, next pose is warrior 1. So I'll show that from the front. Eric will show it from the side. We're going to take the right leg forward, left leg back. The left foot's going to turn out at about a 45-degree angle. You're going to take a bend in the right knee. Look down at your knee. Make sure it's not going over your ankle. So you don't want to go too far and extend that knee. You should be able to see your toes. And then you have to be safe with the knee that it's not falling in or out. Keep it strong. Keep it aimed over the second and third toe. The back leg, in the full warrior 1, the leg is straight. If this is too much for the back hamstring, take a little bend in that back knee. If you need to pop the back heel, you can go ahead and do that if it's hard to keep the foot planted down. If your feet are planted down, I want that back foot pinky also down, not rolling up. Now we're going to move to the hips. So take your hands to your hips. Turn your hips forward so they're facing your front knee. So there's no opening through the hips. Shoulders should be stacked right over the hips. Pull the belly up and in. Relax the shoulders down. So this is your warrior 1. And again, there will be a lot of different arm options, but the fundamentals are from the waist down here, shoulders over the hips, which is above the waist, but it's a pelvic grounding pose. So the weight is in the pelvis, grounding down through the feet. And I'll let Eric add anything.
The only thing I would say is if you have balance issues, either keep your chair handy or do it near a wall so that you can reach out and touch onto something as needed for balance.
Perfect. So we're going to take a breath in here. Exhale, release. If you can maybe sink a little bit deeper, that's where you're going to lengthen, is on that exhale. So you can hold where you are for your breaths, or each time you exhale, you can maybe try to go a little deeper. And I'm just going to show you a couple arm options that you may see. Arms may float all the way up, reaching straight up, but we want to keep those shoulders relaxed. Good. Then we're going to bend at the elbows, bring the arms down. This is called either goalpost or cactus. And then watch that the rib cage doesn't start to come out. Keep it pulled back in, keep the belly lifted. And then arms straight out to the sides is called airplane. And through all these poses, keep your shoulders relaxed. So we're going to drop the hands down, step the feet together, and we're going to try that on the other side. Okay, so left foot forward, right foot turns out 45 degrees behind you. And each side may feel different. And especially if you have any knee or hip issues, it's going to feel different if you've had a surgery. So again, go through the checkpoints in your mind. Look at your knee. Make sure you can see your toes. Pull up through the belly. Ground down through the feet. Keep the back knee soft so it's not locking out. Shoulders relaxed. And begin to breathe. Nice. And you can, we're going to take any arms that you liked. You can play around with the arms. And drop the hands down and step the feet together. Okay, so we're back in our mountain pose. So that concludes the standing portion of our poses. So we did mountain pose, forward fold, monkey, and warrior 1. Now we're going to move to the floor. I'm just going to tilt my camera down a touch. So I'm going to come to seated on my mat, and Eric is going to seat himself on the chair. So we're starting with, I'm in a cross-leg position on the floor. This is just called easy pose or Sukhasana. Easy pose, cross-leg pose. Little kids call it crisscross applesauce. If you're seated in the chair, you have your feet on the floor and you're seated. If this is too much on your knees, if you're on the floor, I want you to listen to your knees and your hips. If they're talking to you and this is not comfortable, you should not be in this pose. If you notice your knees are up high when you sit down, you need to raise your hips. So if this is what you look like seated with your knees up high, you need to put a blanket or a block or something, a book, anything under your bottom to lift you higher, to let your knees relax down. If this does not work for you at all, you can just keep the legs out straight, or you can come to a butterfly. So those are all the options from the floor. So I'm going to come to just a gentle cross-leg position. We're going to bring the hands to the knees, whether you're in the chair or on the floor. I want you to ground your sit bones down to the floor or to the chair. So you can probably feel them. Sometimes you can pull the flesh away and ground them down. You're going to pull your spine up tall. Relax your shoulders down. So it might help you to roll them up and back and just let them melt down. And again, lift through the core. We want to keep engaging that core. And again, the chin is parallel to the floor. So our spine is in a nice long line. And find your breath. So many yoga classes begin in this pose. If they don't start in a standing mountain pose, they generally will begin on the floor seated and begin with breath. So you can close your eyes and just take a couple breaths here. Might feel a little different from when we were standing. You should be able to feel your belly expand and contract as you fill it with air, and this will come with practice. I'm going to take one more breath here. And then pause after your exhale and let yourself just come to your natural breathing for a moment. Notice the difference and notice how your body and your mind feel when you do this breath. I'm hoping you're feeling relaxed and calm when you breathe, and that it brings you to a place of focus in your mind where you can kind of let go of distractions around you, things going around in your head, and listen to your breath. Great. So moving on from our seated pose, we're going to move into cat and cow, which again, I'll demonstrate from the mat, and Eric will show you from the chair. So you're going to come to all fours on the hands and knees. And we want to flat back as flat as possible if you're on the floor. Again, pulling the belly up, flattening the spine, and looking straight down so that neck is in line with the spine. So if you see the pattern here, we're trying not to tuck the chin or not to look up yet. We're lengthening the neck and the spine until we move into this cat-cow, which will now roll through the spine to warm up. So cat and cow is warming up the spine from tailbone to the top of the head. So we're going to begin with cow pose. You're going to drop your belly, lift your tailbone. Now think of rolling up through your shoulder blades, pushing into the floor, lifting out of the shoulders. Then you lift your chin and look up. So that's your cow pose. You inhale on the cow pose as you're opening the heart and lungs. You exhale on the cat pose. So we're going to do the opposite here. As we exhale, we're going to lift the belly, round the back, open the shoulder blades, push into the floor or the chair. take a little pelvic tilt and look down through your legs. Okay, we're going to do that again. So moving into cow, drop the belly, roll up through the spine, from the tailbone, up the spine, through the shoulder blades, through the neck, and look up. And exhale, reverse. Drop the head, tuck the hips, round the back, spread the shoulders. So just continue doing this with your breath. You inhale to cow and you exhale to cat. And this is another move that you will move at your own pace. Everybody breathes at a different speed, so we don't have to stay together. It can be slow. You can pick up the pace. You can do what feels good for you. Eric, any other tips for the chair?
No, I think it's good. As long as they see what I'm doing and they follow along, it's relatively what we're wanting them to do for modification.
Okay, great. All right, so we're gonna finish wherever you are, finish your set, your cat-cow, and come back to a neutral spine. And from here, we're gonna move into down dog. So on the floor, you're gonna curl your toes under behind you. Push your hands into the floor. And before we move on, I just wanna show you real quick with the hands real quickly. You wanna take the weight out of the wrist, so we're not pushing all of the weight into our wrist. We wanna try to bring it into the index finger and thumb, this L shape, and into the finger pads. That's where you wanna try to press the majority of the weight so you're not hurting your wrists. So as we push down, we lift our shoulders, we curl our toes under, we lift our knees up. We're gonna slide our hips back like we're on a diving board and straighten our arms. And then you're gonna straighten the legs as far as they'll go. So this is another pose that will go as far as your flexibility. Your knees may stay bent, or you may extend them all the way up and then drop your heels. So everyone's down dog is gonna look a little different. You want the arms straight, not the legs.
And what I would say for the hands is put the hands back as far on the seat as possible. Do the same thing she was talking about, put your pressure through your fingertips and the pads. And then just keep your legs straight and sit your bottom backward so that your arms and your back flatten straight.
Yes. So you probably are going to feel this down the hamstrings, all the way down the shins into the Achilles. You'll feel it in the upper arms, down the side flanks of the body. So it's really full body stretch here. And again, we're pulling the core in and we're lifting through the tailbone. And then just drop your head would be the last piece of that, so that there's no tension in the neck. And that is your down dog. So we're going to come out of our down dog and we're going to go into plank for our next pose. So I'm going to demonstrate full plank and modified plank from the floor. And as you can see, Eric's doing it from the chair. So I'm starting on all fours, and a full plank, I'm just going to step my feet back, lift my belly up and in, press up out of my shoulders, not lock my elbows. That's what I'm not going to do. And this is your full plank. Modified plank, knees are going to come down and then flatten the toes behind you, still lifting up out of the shoulders, not locking the elbows, pulling the belly up and in, and holding here.
And if you're doing a plank on a chair, I would walk your feet back a little further on your mat than we had them for the downward dog. Put your hands wherever on your chair you feel comfortable. Lean your weight forward to try to straighten out your body as much as you feel comfortable. And relatively try to straighten out your spine. So again, squeezing through your stomach, squeezing through your glutes. Try to keep your body as straight as you can.
Perfect. And again, if you're on the floor, watch the wrists. Well, I guess in the chair too, watch that you're not pressing all the weight into your wrists, and keep that core engaged and those glutes. So plank is a hard one. Whole body, every muscle is engaged here. Take one more breath because you're probably not breathing. So a reminder to breathe in these poses, especially the harder ones. And then you can go ahead, if you're on the floor, drop your knees, drop out of it. If you're in the chair, step up out of it. Okay, next pose is child's pose. So, okay, you're gonna do that seated. I'm gonna do that down here. So from the floor, your knees are together, you're seated on your heels. So there's two versions of child's pose. With the knees together, which is a stretch more into the lower back, or knees open and dropping the belly between the legs, which gets deeper into your hips. So you'll want to play around with that and personally decide each time you do yoga which one feels better for you that day. I'm going to demonstrate it with my knees together. And you're just going to start to lean forward and walk your hands forward. And you're going to bring the hands out as far as they can. So we're extending through the arms, and then we're just dropping the head to the mat. You'll feel the stretch in the back. You might feel it in the hips, in the shoulders, in the upper back. So this is what they call the safest pose in yoga, safe physically and mentally. People find this comforting, relaxing, where they can just really let go. It's almost like being in fetal position. So it's a very safe pose and it's very calming. So anytime you're doing a yoga class and you need a break, this is the pose we say to come into. Just drop down, take a child's pose. And breathe. I'm going to take one more breath in this pose, and I just want you to mindfully soften and relax. So notice, did you tense up your shoulders or your jaw or your hips? Can you just let everything melt for one last breath? Good. And then we're going to come up out of this. Just lift the head, bring the arms back, lift the spine.
If you're in the chair, be sure to put your hands up on your knees and push yourself up using your hands.
Great. Okay, so we've come full circle. We have one last pose. Just before we go into our final pose, which is Shavasana, final relaxation, I just want to go over those seated poses we did, starting with the cross leg. We just did the beginning easy seated pose. We did the cat-cow to warm up the spine, the child's pose that we just did, downward dog, and plank. So the last pose, which is everyone's favorite, is Shavasana, or final relaxation. So for myself, I'm going to come down flat onto my back. Eric's going to do it seated in the chair. In this pose, you just want to, you're going to let everything go. There's no work in this pose. So you're going to close your eyes. You're going to let all the muscles just fall soft. So the work is over. You're going to bring your focus into your mind and your breath now. So I'm going to come down fully onto my back. I'm going to let my ankles just roll open naturally. I'm going to take my hands and place them on the floor with my palms facing up. And I'm going to lift my head and set it down to align my neck with my spine one last time.
And if you're doing this sitting in the chair, just make sure that your feet are either flat on the floor, or if you're in a higher chair like me, flat on something to support them. So there's no tension in the legs. Hands can rest naturally on the thighs. Let the thighs otherwise relax. And lean back against your chair. Make sure you're using the backrest.
And then just continue that ujjayi breathing. So focused breath, clearing the mind. Normally a Shavasana is held for a minimum of 10 breaths, as long as up to 5 minutes in a class. So you may notice in your breath that you get distracted. You start to wander in your mind. You start to think of what you have to do. And you just need to begin again. We remind students in yoga classes, it's okay, acknowledge those thoughts, those distractions, and then let them go. Start again, because we're trying to train our mind to just be present. And to notice what we're feeling in our body. So we're going to take one last Ujjayi breath in. And a long breath out. And then you're going to begin to open your eyes. If you're on the floor, you can maybe wiggle your fingers and toes, bring awareness back to your body. To come out of this from the floor, you're going to walk your feet in, lift the knees, and carefully roll yourself to one side, to a fetal position. Then you're going to use your hands to press yourself up. And you're going to come back to that easy pose, that cross-legged pose. If you're in the chair, you're already back to seated. And then the end of a yoga class, if you don't end in your shavasana, you will come back to seated. You will generally bring your hands to prayer, bow your head, and we say namaste at the end of class to each other. I know will be a video, so you can whisper it to yourself. And namaste means the light in me honors the light in you. So I'll just invite everyone to bring their hands to prayer and bow their head and say to themselves, namaste.
We here at Forte would like to thank you for watching our video. If you liked it, please give us a thumbs up. If you would like to follow more of the offerings from Forte, please subscribe below. And don't forget to share us with your friends. Enjoy well-being.